Connecting to the internet.
Internet.
Networking software.
World Wide Web thing on a computer today.
Computer.
Net Surfer Pro.
Alright, and it's the night of the big game of course, Supreme Bowl IIIIIL. And with me is Galen, my caster, and we are going to be coming to you right from the field, right from the stadium, right from the seats. Do you hear the fans out there?
That's right, Matt. Today's a big game for the Dodgers. Obviously, they're up against the Broncos this year. Been a pretty good year for both of them. Let's see if it continues.
Yeah, it's wild that the Dodgers, such a franchise celebrated in one sport, could just completely pivot into another sport, go right in a different direction, which is what Dodgers starting quarterback Jonathan Freaky Fellow is going to be doing today.
Yeah, that's right. And I believe I said it at the beginning. They dodged a bullet by going into football. But today we've got a lot of talent. You can't really underestimate the Broncos because they got J. James Jamery on their roster as quarterback. So let's throw some up their way.
Yes, of course. We are starting off with the snapback. Of course, Broncos are on defensive.
All right, and the kick is coming up. Okay, and...
Yes, of course, Broncos are going for the play where they snap the ball back to the quarterback, but then the quarterback sets it up for a kickoff, as if they were going to kick it down the field. Let's see if we can get a field goal this way.
I believe they call this one the Charlie Brown. Let's see, and... Oh, wow, the kick is actually really good.
Oh, you see, that's interesting to see the Charlie Brown. The fun thing about the Charlie Brown is it's a play where you can choose for the quarterback to pick up the football again like Lucy. That's the Lucy variant. And then, of course, if we saw that, James J. Jamery would be running down the field in his signature speed and style. But no, in this case, Tommy Watterson kicked the ball as hard as he ever could, and it's through the field goal.
All right, and we're second down, and we're 4 minutes in. So it seems like they're setting up to pass the ball back to the Broncos. I believe I said that the Dodgers were the ones who did the kick.
Nope. But we can pretend that it was because of yes-anding. It's time for a commercial break. We'll be right back, and it's 4-4 with the Broncos and the Dodgers. A game could go in any direction, really.
Hello, and welcome to Net Server Pro, a whirlwind ride through the World Wide Web. I am your co-host, Galen, for this 40-minute to 1 hour advertisement that you're about to hear.
It cost us so much.
This is...
I had to mortgage my house in ways I thought were illegal nowadays.
I do not know how we managed to convince... This is like top football season, too, that we've managed to convince them to give 40 entire minutes
I had
to
to get a super prime mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a Super Bowl.
Oh, I thought it was like a subprime mortgage, but a super.
Oh yeah, no, that was, but it's a double entendre.
Yeah, I think that could be a double entendre, or maybe just 2 words.
2 words? Double entendre is 2 words.
Well, we figured one's history out tonight.
Yes, but we'll have bigger mysteries we're here to uncover today, which is why do we suddenly care about football?
Yes,
I mean, we're from St. Louis, which has famously been shunned and scorned by the NFL.
Yes, we had a team, the St. Louis Rams. They are now the LA Rams, and I haven't kept up on them, but seemingly they've gotten better after leaving St. Louis, which I'm a little upset about. The Rams are not our star team. They do not get to be good the moment they leave St. Louis.
They won a Super Bowl when they were in St. Louis.
All right, but they weren't the Cardinals.
Sure, but, well, I mean, that's because that's in Arizona.
Well...
See, I mean, the thing is, like, after the Rams won, they're like, the LA Rams wins their first Super Bowl. It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. This isn't their first Super Bowl win. Come on now.
I would like to go behind the bit a little bit, by the way, and say that...
this episode of Behind the Bit.
Where we basically take this bit anywhere we want, and say that all of the jokey technobabble was genuinely us, like... We like, Matthew looked, sat me down and was like, we're not gonna, haha sports ball. Like, obviously we had funny names, but that was genuinely me being like, oh yeah, the Dodgers, they're a baseball team, right?
Yeah, yes, he definitely said they're a baseball team.
Shit.
Forgetting that this is a football season and a football series. But that's why I kind of did that little yes and, because I'm trying to make my partner look good.
Aw, thank you. I appreciate that.
I mean, you're my co-host, not my partner.
Oh.
I don't actually have a partner. So yeah, in case you haven't actually clicked out of the episode somehow, maybe you're driving, in which case I apologize. We are talking about football because we are talking about a interesting bit of media, one of my favorite things on the internet.
Yeah, sometimes on Net Surfer Pro, we don't really get to, it's a lot of, video games and things like that, where, it counts for our purpose, but, we're stretching it a little bit. This is an internet media that could not be anything else.
Yes, this is, prime Net Surfer Pro material. But first we have to talk about a certain person, the author of the work. So we have to start with Jon Bois.
I believe that we should go to the corner of fact real quick.
The Fact Corner.
So Jon Bois is the creative director at SB Nation / Secret Base. I'm not exactly sure what the branding is right now. Secret Base is a sports news and sort of sports media website / conglomerate. Think of it like any other internet-based news and entertainment outlet. I think they're best compared to Polygon because they literally shared an office with Polygon for a while. Jon Bois is the creative director. For a while he was just an editor, but he gained notoriety. That's the word. He gained notoriety through a series called Breaking Madden, where he just tried to completely break the Madden video games. He also wrote the Tim Tebow CFL Chronicles, which is a story based on a fictional premise that Tim Tebow had joined the Canadian Football League instead of the NFL. But I think most people know him knew him, I guess, began knowing him for Pretty Good, which is a series of YouTube videos about stories that are pretty good, as he says. Most of these are related to sports. There's some on really weird football games, like Troy State DeVry, which is sort of just a Rube Goldberg of bad events. Same thing with the 1904 Olympic Marathon, which hits incredibly close to home in that it is about St. Louis.
Yeah, if you don't know anything about St. Louis, St. Louis prides itself on the 1904 World's Fair. I have learned multiple times about how, did you know that the first, cone, ice cream cone was invented in the World's Fair when they ran out of cones and, someone just went to the waffles and picked one up and was like, we use this now. I guess that's what they sounded like at the time.
Yeah. Also, Dr. Pepper was first sold there. There's a few other things. I think cotton candy. Also, it was racist.
It was very racist.
Yeah.
But there was a really big Ferris wheel.
Yeah. There was also a cage full of birds. That part's cool. We still have it. Don't worry. It's a lot nicer than it sounds.
And far less racist.
Yes. Instead, it's a swamp. So it's Shrek. So going back to Jon Bois, one of my favorite videos by his is, of course, the one about professional poker. He's similarly had other sort of interesting topics, like a video about 24 and how fucked up the world of 24 is. But nowadays he has a few main series on the SB Nation YouTube channel, which are Chart Party, which is sort of like a fun way of using sports statistics to tell stories.
Is this the one where he charted out what would have happened if a famous baseball player, whose name I definitely remember, went out without a bat?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know if that was Chart Party or Pretty Good.
That almost sounds like an XKCD comic.
It was like, one of the best baseball players of all time, and he basically calculated his career as though he didn't have a bat because, late in his career, he just, was getting, thrown to first multiple times because they were like, I don't fucking want to deal with this.
One of my favorite things is he came up with the concept of scoreagami, which is a never before achieved score in a game of football. And people actively track scoreagamis. It's a thing.
That's really interesting.
There's also Dorktown, which is about kind of underdogs, I guess, which culminated in the miniseries History of the Seattle Mariners, which is one of the best sports things I've ever seen, and also the History of the Atlanta Falcons, which is pretty similar. He did Fighting in the Age of Loneliness, which is about the history of MMA. He did The Bob Emergency, which is about how we're running out of athletes named Bob. And he also does a series called Fumble Dimension with Kofi Yaboa, which is a series kind of like Monster Factory, if you're familiar, where they just try to break different sports video games. Doing things like making the world's dumbest golf course, or making a team of only Shohei Ohtani is the most recent one. So Jon Bois, he does a lot of media. A lot of it's really funny. It really hits on a wider range of people, like a wider demographic than you'd think most sports media would. Because, like, sports fans already dig sports media. But Jon is able to present it in a way that non-sports fans have really grown to love, in a mix of his sort of wit, his very prosaic writing style, his editing in video style, which we'll talk about as we progress, and just his choice of his ability to find really interesting stories in his research as well. I think those 5 things made him more in line with, like, an interesting video essayist. You know, you've got people like Jan Miseli who can pretty much make a video about anything and people will watch it because their topics are always well researched and well presented and they're fun to listen to. Jon Bois is like that, but he kind of mainly focuses on sports because clearly that's his interest. And so even though I would not say I'm somebody who watches a lot of sports, I watch a lot of Jon Bois content.
Yeah.
And I want to start with that preface because just because football in the year 1776 is a story about football in the future, that does not mean you have to know a lot about football to know it. You basically have to know the basic rules of, like, you have to get the ball in the end zone. If it touches the ground, it's a down. There's offense and defense teams, stuff like that. But beyond that, you don't need to care a lot about football. So read this. Just read it.
Yeah. This is definitely another one where we're going to be like, you should consume this media beforehand. We'll tailor it as though you haven't, just in case. But, like, this is one of the best, like, internet web series sort of... Web series is not the right word.
Yeah, internet web fiction?
Yeah, web fiction is a good word for it. I want to tangent for, like, literally 30 seconds. If you cannot listen to a single content creator except for one, who would you choose?
Oh, that is such a difficult question.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, like, Jon Bois is definitely up there. Like I said, wide variety of topics, very prosaic and well-written style. Maybe Tim Rogers?
Oh, God, yeah. Tim Rogers is a very good choice.
His videos are always great, and they always have, like, new things I notice every time I watch them / listen to them.
I bring up this topic just because I was watching Jacob Geller's most recent video, and I kind of had the thought of, like, Jacob Geller isn't my favorite content creator, but, like, Jacob Geller is the one that I drop everything to watch immediately.
Yeah. There's definitely ones who I'm like, this is urgent. And some of that might just be because they're infrequent enough videos that they feel like events when they come out.
Yeah.
And that a lot of people like it. It's like, the Avengers. Really, I'm saying Jacob Geller is the Avengers of YouTube.
Well, Jacob Geller would have to be the Iron Man. And so Jon Bois would probably be the Captain America, because what's more American than football? Oh, wait, no, but then they have to fight. No!
No!
I ruined my metaphor. Anyway...
The winner is Harris Bomber fellow, who is of course the Hulk, because he broke through his wall that one time,
and then did it again. And
yeah,
it's like, I did the thing.
I did the thing.
Oh, so football in the year 17776, sometimes shortened to just 17776,
or football in the future, which is what I call it when I don't want to say numbers.
It is a piece of web fiction that It's a sci-fi series. Here is the elevator pitch. And, like, if I wanted to be cheeky, I would say it's about football in the year 17776.
And if I wanted to be cheeky, I would say, what floor? It's an elevator pitch.
Sometimes you test me.
Well, the things I teach you are sure to beat you.
But if I were to give a genuine pitch of like, what is the series actually about? It is about a distant future where nobody dies of natural causes. Nobody has been born in 15,000 years. And so people just kind of occupy their time, and it is told through the perspective of 3 sapient satellites that are in space.
Yes. So, yeah, the series opens with a bunch of calendars, which, by the way, I have to point out the font choices for the calendars is so good. They have, like, the, what is it? It's like Journeys? It's like this street art inspired font that is used for one bit, and then they have a font that is very clearly like a old digital scoreboard sort of font. Very good. But it goes through all these years, and you're reading somebody who is saying, like, who's there? Is anybody there? Help. They get a message from somebody else who says, like, just be patient. And then they say, like, can you rotate, like, 13 degrees north? Or something like that. Anyways, we come to learn that the person who was saying help was Pioneer 9. And the person who said to rotate 13 degrees north is Pioneer 10.
These are both real satellites. You can see them today if you can travel 15 billion years away. Billion light years away.
Yeah. Also, Pioneer 10, inspiration for the Avalanche's We Will Always Love You.
Interesting.
Fun fact. It has that was the Voyager. There were similar golden records. Pioneer had one, Voyager had the other. Anyways, so 2 satellites. After so much time had passed, they had just begun to be sentient. The other main character is Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, which is JUICE for short. And this is apparently a satellite or like a space observing device, I don't know what you call it, that is being launched this year.
Which is awesome. Cool.
And also, there is a brief note of Hubble being alive as well, so that's cool. But they're able to communicate with each other, and throughout the story, we're basically seeing the world through Nine's eyes as they learn what life is like for humanity in the current year. And this also comes in the form of 10 and Juice watching different games of football.
Yeah. So, like, if I remember correctly, the first one that they go down to basically show Nine, like, here's what we can do. It isn't actually a game. It, like, tunes into a family.
No,
it isn't?
No, so the first one is we literally go down to a group of, like reporters.
Right.
Live streaming a game and there's a tornado coming through. I love this game because it's the perfect way to introduce the world, in media res. We learn that there is a quarterback named Nancy who is running to Iowa, through Kansas.
Yeah, the end zones are Iowa and Ohio.
Nebraska.
Oh, Iowa and Nebraska.
Yeah. And Nancy is running right towards a tornado. She is going to be surrounded by, like, 30 defenders from Iowa. And she's running right towards a tornado. So this introduces the rules of the universe, sort of, that, for one thing, football is intramural now. Very good step.
That is probably the most important thing that this series introduces.
Yes. There can be a kind of malleable amount of players on the field. The end zones can be anything, like entire states. People can run cross-country football, they call it. And yeah, people don't die, they don't take damage, they have protection from all colors. No, so...
And Nancy briefly has flying.
They also eventually mention, like, they don't have to eat if they don't want to, I think. Basically, the lore is that, yeah, like, nobody's dying, nobody's getting born, so humanity created a field of nanobots that protects them from everything else. And so, yeah, Nancy goes up in a tornado. And it's great because, like, they cut out right before, or right as that happened, and Nine is like, wait, no, Nancy's gonna die, isn't she? And they're like, no, it's okay, this was planned. And then, like, the reporters on the ground are like, Nancy planned for this. She wanted to go up in the tornado. This is a great play.
Oh, man. I think after that is when we get to the family.
Yes, and we learn about Koy Detmer.
So, man, this is such a good... This might be my favorite little sub-story. So, a family whose names I unfortunately forget.
Jason and... There's one more, I don't remember the wife's name, but Jason was the one that is the Koy Detmer player.
Yeah. His wife is actually the, like, more famous football player, which is, feminism. But, they're a football family, and they have a friend over, and they're talking about stuff, and the friend even kind of is like, oh, you football players, you always bring it back. But Jason introduces that he has been playing this game with his friends for, like, a couple hundred years, and it's now, like, stalled out.
I don't know if I'd call them friends.
Well. So the idea is that Koy Detmer is he was a 1990s player. He wasn't, like, exceptionally, like, well-known or anything. But the group that he found, or the group that he joined, realized, like, hey, that means that, like, there probably aren't a lot of, like, genuine, fieldable, Koy Detmer signed, footballs out there. And so they came up with this game where basically, all of them are trying to find all of the Koy Detmer footballs.
Yes.
And own all of the specifically field legal Koy Detmer footballs.
Yeah. Field legal, only signed by Koy Detmer, so not, like, the whole team.
Yeah, and you can't, like, contact him to ask him to sign another one or anything like that.
Right. There's this really funny sort of paradox going on with the Koy Detmer game, that the footballs are valueless because Koy Detmer isn't a popular player, but they're given value because of how rare they are, so Koy Detmer's obscurity makes them even more celebrated. And what's really cool is that Jason mentions that he researched Koy Detmer's college football days, meaning that he cared about the player's history, meaning that, like, the game had given value to Koy Detmer's career more than the NFL ever did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is also where, and this is a recurring theme that will come up later as well, where he mentions the idea of stealing is legal in this game. It's still kind of a crime, but, like, in the rules of the game, they're like, I mean, if you don't get caught, like, it's obviously against whatever municipality you're in, but, you can just steal the balls. This culminates when, he and another player have decided to split it because they are the only ones with the balls, and the other player T-bones him off a cliff.
Yeah. And the car burns up with the footballs inside.
And, like, he's safe because the nano web is like, oh, we got you. You're not in any danger. But he's literally yelling, like, no, grab the fucking footballs.
Yeah.
But he breaks into one of the other players' homes, or I think two of the other players' homes. And he kind of waxes a little bit over the idea of bullshit cabinets, where basically it's a cabinet that no one really uses. It's just there so that, whoever made it can say, oh, there's more than one cabinet. But, like, realistically, you only really use waist-high cabinets, or, like, slightly higher than waist-high. And so, he calls those bullshit cabinets. And the ultimate one, where he finds the hidden balls, are the cabinet on a grill.
Yeah. I love it. It's like random, like, cabinets where they didn't know what else to do with that part of the furniture, so they wanted to give it more utility. And it's just holding a football now. But yeah. I wanted to mention a few things, actually, about Nancy's game, the tornado game.
Yeah.
So, going back a bit, we'll get to the Koy Detmer game later, because it appears again later in the series.
Yeah.
So, for one thing, Nancy has a scorecard, and I love how it shows the, like, size creep of football in universe, because over time there's, like, some point where she stops playing and then she starts playing again. When she resumes play, her attempts and average gained a entire decimal place, and her yards gained 2 decimal places, but her touchdowns were 0 for almost every year she played after that like hiatus, and before that it was, in the tens decimal places, like 30, 40 maybe per year. So from that early on, you get an idea of how football has grown and changed, that it is no longer a game where you score points. Also, I want to mention the tornado game again as a good start to the series because it really shows the ethos that the series follows, which is that let's suppose these rules are in place for the universe and how people live. What consequences follow from that? So, like, people being immortal means that it is a viable strategy to go into a tornado to shake offense. But also, people being immortal means you can have these really long, drawn-out games of football. Okay, if you are immortal, you never really get tired. You know, what does that mean? Well, it means that you could theoretically just keep running and running with the ball throughout an entire state. That means that there's cross-country football. And then it's like, what strategies are there? Nancy talks about how she likes to be on the outskirts of cities because when she's in an open field, it's too easy to spot her. But when she's in a city, there's a lot of fans for the enemy team that will find her and, like, report her. And so she likes to be near the outside of a city. That is a strategy that Jon Bois, the writer, had to come up with given his own universe's rules. But it feels super natural to the world. Like, of course that's something they would think about.
Yeah, like, of course that's, you know, sort of a strategy that, like, you know, would naturally come up. There's another one later that we'll talk about that I also love, where, like, it brings up, like, edge rules, where, like, if you wait 10,000 years, then technically you win.
Yeah. That's speaking of edge rules, that's part of the Koei Detmer game, is that if no new Koei Detmer footballs can be found within 500 years, then the game is ended. So currently the character Jason, he is trying to find at least one more ball before that period expires.
Yeah.
I did also want to mention, because nobody can contact Koei Detmer about the game, he probably doesn't know about it being played.
Yeah.
Which also means he could make new footballs still. He could sign new footballs unbeknownst to anybody, because the person asking for his autograph might not be in the game as well.
Which, like, is... Oh, there's also... I love this other rule as well, where, like... you're not allowed to actually trade anything of value for it. Like, if you find a listing on eBay, you aren't allowed to buy it. You have to convince the person to give it to you or steal it.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, yeah, you know, he mentions, you know, I got, you know, some of my first ones because I call up people on eBay. I told them about the game and they're like, it's only worth like $25 anyway here.
Mm-hmm. And then at the end of this sort of chapter, they briefly mention going to New York. Keep New York in mind.
Yeah, keep New York in mind.
Okay, the next chapter is... I think between that we get some more... So between each chapter we get more details about the ship, or not ships, but like the probes. Juice, 9, and 10. One thing I like is that they all think of themselves in human-like terms. They personify themselves. In one example is that they assign themselves a gender. So Juice thinks of himself as male and 10 thinks of herself as female. And 9 hasn't decided yet, which is kind of important. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Just in the sense that they make a big deal of the probes having information from humans, and that's why they're able to be sentient, is because they've been receiving like human broadcasts. I just think that's interesting from, like, also a storytelling standpoint of, like, trying your hardest to personify these machines that are floating through space.
Yeah. I love it, too, because, like, you know, because, like, 9 as a focal point, obviously, is, like, you know, it's being explained to 9, so it's being explained to us. But, like, 9 specifically, the explanation that's given is that, like, you know, well, 9 was programmed by humans, and so they would have preconceived notions of various things. And so, you know, when they get the wake-up call, it's not just, you know, oh, I don't know nothing. They know things. They just don't know the things of today.
Yeah. Is 17776 an isekai?
Well,
It falls somewhere on the spectrum, right?
On a scale of Sword Art Online to Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon. I think that's an isekai.
Yes.
I would give
I
it...
believe it is.
I would give it a solid... Hi, Galen. This is past you. In the future, you should find a funny example and then, like, insert it right here. Say, like, you know, oh, SpongeBob is an isekai or something like that. But, like, something that's kind of viable, but, like, not really.
Futurama?
Futurama's
an isekai.
Yeah, shit, Futurama is an isekai. Huh.
Okay, so, yeah, we learn a few other things about them. One detail... Actually, no, yeah, let's just go to the next chapter.
Yeah.
Washington versus New Mexico. So, this is a podcast.
Yeah, this is such a good chapter.
I kind of want to do, like, a reading of this as if we were the podcast hosts.
Oh, man.
So, one great thing about this series is that it presents the different forms of media that still exist. So, like, first we had, like, live streamers, essentially, like, independent broadcasters. And then now we have a podcast. People talking about garbage football games.
Yeah.
And with, you know, however many thousand years, there's a lot of garbage.
Oh, man. We're not going to do the live reading right now.
Yes,
although that
worry.
would be a really fun, like, bonus episode.
Yes.
But, yeah, so it's this podcast about the worst football games in history. And today's episode, quote unquote, is about who were the two players?
Washington. Well, so it's Washington and New Mexico are the teams.
Right.
And they had a genius idea making a game where the end zones were Canada and Mexico, using their respective states' borders with those countries. But the width of the football field is the width of a normal football field. What could go wrong? Apparently a lot.
Yeah, so, like, you know, it's like, okay, that's a cute idea. But, like, then there's, you know, the topography where, like, oh, there's a literal entire fucking mountain in the way. And you can't go around, you have to go up and over the mountain. While other people are trying to tackle you off the mountain.
Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to get the ball, like, further down the mountain, it's very easy to do that compared to passing it up the mountain.
Yeah.
You just go, and then it just tumbles.
But it culminates into one beautiful mess up on the planner's parts.
Yes.
There is a massive fucking valley in the way. Apparently they had, like, tried to avoid it, like, they had planned for it, but for some reason, when everything was final, there was a giant valley in the way that, like, you know, realistically no one team could, like, climb up, you know, in time, without immediately, you know, getting pulled back down by the other team.
Yeah, and they also mention it's filled with water, and that means that it doesn't touch the ground, and so the play just goes on forever. It, like, never changes hands, it never moves the line of skirmish. And since if they leave the field, they're out of the game, they can't, like, go around the valley. There's just, like, what do they do? And so this has been going on for years, apparently, like, centuries.
Like I think he says it's been going on for 12,000 years.
Yeah.
And, like, it's still going on.
Yeah.
People still appear for that game.
One of my favorite... So, I use this comparison a lot, I feel like, but one of my favorite paintings is in Goya's Black series, where there was a painting of two people waist deep in mud, just bludgeoning each other with sticks. That's what this game is.
Oh, man.
Unable to move, unable to make a difference. And so, for one thing, after this, 9 mentions, like, humans are broken, and this leads into sort of a major theme. But I do want to mention, before we get into the heavy stuff, the lighter stuff, which is Google Earth.
Yes, Google Earth is a consistently used component, and it's really well done.
This is a hallmark of Jon Bois' style, is using Google Earth as a visual reference. For one thing, I should also mention Jon Bois uses a lot of, like, 90s, like, new wave, like, computer music, I guess. Like,
if you know the intro to Summoning Salt videos...
not. I think it's more like go back and listen to our episode on Floral Shop, or maybe our episode on Paradise Killer. Like that style of like vaporwave club adjacent stuff.
Yeah,
that music works really well with Google Earth because it's sort of a low poly representation of Earth. It also lets him add these visual aids on it really easily. So for this whole Washington, New Mexico game, he just has like a green stripe going throughout the continent to show where the field actually is. When it goes into a valley, the green stripe dips down into the valley and back up, as if he just painted it on the planet.
Yeah.
It makes it very intuitive to see, like, oh, this is the terrain that he's talking about. And when, like, important, like, landmarks are being discussed, you know, he shows those off with Google Earth as well. I also like it because it kind of makes sense that the computers are using a computerized version of Earth to like image it.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear that they're actually tuning into things like the podcast or like a video feed. And it seems like they might be able to actually look at the planet. It's hard to say, but it at least feels in character that like they would fly around Earth using Google Earth.
Yeah. I know that they can see into the planet because something that Juice likes to do.
Oh, yeah.
He mentions, like, I miss when you could get whacked by a garden hose.
A garden hoe.
A garden hoe.
A rake. Like Sideshow Bob.
Yeah, like a Looney Tunes whack. And he's like, you know, obviously if someone was around, they get embarrassed. But if no one was around, they try to play it cool. And I'd love to immediately text them after and be like, I saw what you did, motherfucker.
Yeah. I want to talk about Davelikes now.
Yes, you can have your Davelikes.
Here's my
Davelikes.
Dave from Homestuck. Homestuck's character Dave. I feel like he's very influential in a way that might not be true, but feels true, and so it's true. Here's the traits of a Davelike. Think about what characters this might represent in other media. So, often eschews punctuation and caps, talking in a more sort of dialect-accurate way. Kind of gives off an air of like being chill, I guess, in that regard. Talks about random shit and hyperfixates a lot. Usually just kind of juts in with non sequiturs. Orange red, you know, just the color orangish, reddish, yellowish. One thing I love about Juice specifically is that he types faster than he can think and often backspaces.
Yeah.
He backspaces the most out of all the observers. But so Davelike is those first three things. The punctuation in caps, the hyperfixation, and orange-red. I feel like this... like I said, Dave from Homestuck is sort of what I think started this. But it's like a character that is able to literally fill any role because they are both interested in things and not interested. They're like apathetic and extremely invested. They can talk about random shit and tell a joke, or they can get serious, because that's sort of the character archetype.
I would liken it, if I were to put it into one word, I would say shitposter.
Yeah.
It is a shitposter dialect.
Mm-hmm. Paradise Killer had two Davelikes.
Yeah.
There was Shinji, and there was one of the people in 25 that you hear whenever you get a drink.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Go listen to Paradise Killer again. That was such a good episode. Such a good game.
A lot of post-Homestuck media that's very, like, kind of internet-centric uses this character archetype. And Juice is a Davelike.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Juice is also probably my favorite character.
Juice is great.
Juice is great.
I don't know what my favorite character is, honestly. My favorite game is the next one, though.
Is this Game 27?
Game 27
Game 27, baby!
I love the exchange of 10 being like, you can put on any game while 9 is, like, working through their existential dread. But except, and then Juice immediately says, any game? Game 27! So, Game 27, it's the most Google Earth-centric game. And so it really helps to have the visual reference, but they fly into the stadium, and it's like the Broncos stadium, or no, maybe the Cowboys. I want to say Cowboys.
I know that there's like the opposing team only has one player that shows up every week or so.
Yeah, so they have like there's like a wall down half of the field. There's like skyscrapers jutting out. There's just some random like prefab houses.
There's a Bojangles.
Yeah.
There's a Bojangles, and there's a spot where a Bojangles used to be.
Yeah.
Very specifically.
The description is that through a series of loopholes and rules, they found that players and teams could own parts of the field, and then they started like more of the fans could start getting in on that. And essentially it started to just turn into like people dividing up land. At some point, the team, one of the teams, I think it was the Cowboys, that started the game wanted to keep playing the game. And so their part of the field is kind of unblemished. And they essentially lobbied to give the opposing team a tiny corner left.
Yeah.
One team tried to like make a middle sort of parted corridor for them to still play, but that got ruined.
There's a second game that like some fans realized they could partition one area and the other area as the end zones of a different game, but they can't play it because the Bojangles in the way.
Yeah, there's a Bojangles. There's houses because they wanted to rent out houses to fans who could live in a football game. And they mentioned that like since they're tenants, they are also in the game, so they can make a play if they want to. Yeah. If they want to, you know.
I also love Juice's explanation for like how this came to be is he posits to Nine, how do you know a player has control of the ball?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know, they sort of, grab it and have it. And he's like, yeah, like, in the olden times when you had limited time for these things, there was a lot of stuff that was, just accepted.
As the ref calls it.
Yeah. But like, with infinite time, they sort of, took the endeavor to like, okay, why don't we knuckle down and really try to divide these things to where catch is 50 pages long. And I love that because like, it feels very human. It feels very, like when you knuckle down, it's like, let's try and define everything to the smallest amount. But B, this is also just Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's the comprehensive rulebook. Did you know that players can use the Wizard Store and Event Locator to find Wizard Store and events near their area? That's a rule in the Magic rulebook. And Mindslaver my opponent. All right, give me your phone.
If I were, just like king of Magic for one day, I would make that illegal. Actually, like I would just flip that 100% that you cannot use it if the opponent can prove that you used the Magic Event Locator.
I would allow it. I would allow you to look at your opponent's sideboard if you took control of their turn. But if you put an Opalescence and Humility on the field, the judges are legally allowed to punch you. Or if you like try to cast fucking what's it called? Armada Worm? That's not it, but there's some fucking thing you can cast from your library like an asshole. Anyways, we're getting off topic.
I'd ban the color blue. Anyway.
Wow. What did blue ever do to you? Game 27 is great because it's like a satire of weird, obscure rules. Like, of course there's going to be a team who would be so far up their asses that they would comb through the rulebook to find a loophole like that. Like, that feels equally as human nature. Like, if you give somebody rules, they will try to find a way to break them. But, like, compliantly break them. It's a very Johnny thing.
Also, there's a skyscraper in there.
Yeah.
I also love this because, like, Juice makes a point where it's like, listen, 10, I get why you hate this, because you were born in the United States, and, you see this as, like, a failure of capitalism, or, like, capitalist excess gone too far. But, like, the thing is, we are, like... I think the line is literally like, humans win a different day and thank God for that. But capitalism still needs a place to have all this random weird bullshit, and 27 is that place.
Yeah, he calls it like a capitalist zoo. Essentially, that because of the post-scarcity era, like, people aren't capitalist anymore. It's a pretty utopian society. You can literally go to a Burger King and ask for money.
Yeah, a character literally does that.
Yeah. But this is the dystopian corner of the world where capitalism sits in its old form to remind people of how ugly it is. It is beautiful in how, like, dystopian this game is.
I would like to bring up a video done by Thought Slime. which is about like capitalism in Minecraft, where they basically admit like, listen, if you didn't have stakes to capitalism, it's kind of a fun game. Like if just seeking infinite growth for infinite growth's sake, it's kind of fun when it's like Minecraft diamonds, you know?
Cookies.
Yeah.
Another good thought line video.
Yes. But, like, you know, the problem with capitalism is that, you know, when infinite growth doesn't happen, people die and get abandoned on the street because they don't have jobs. And that's the big problem. But, like, in a utopian society, you still gotta have some, like, you know, some outlet for that. That is compelling.
Yeah. I also love 9 mentions that, like, the game could have been great. It could have been, like, this wacky maze game, but they just made it completely impassable due to greed and obstinance. And I agree. It looks like it would be a fun, like, Gmod map.
God, yes.
I want to play Game 27 in, like, VR chat or something.
Yeah, fuck Dark RP. Give me fucking Game 27 map. Holy
I think
shit.
Game 27 has surpassed the Witness Island for something I want in Gmod. And trust me, I would fuck with the Witness Island for TTT or something like that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Game 27's great. After that, we get a brief bit about sidewalks.
Yes, this is actually the Jacob Geller video that brings this one up. A Jacob Geller video. Where, like, the conversation is effectively... The standout moment is, like, one where Juice, goes, I've, tracked a lot of lawns, and there's a specific lawn in, like, Chicago, where, no one in the history of 17,000 years has ever directly stepped foot on it. Someone has, gone over it with a lawnmower every now and again, but no one has ever directly stepped foot on this lawn. And 9 is like, that's impossible. And he's like, no, I've checked. I've done the math. It's very possible. And the ending of that bit is so good.
Yes!
Because Juice is like, tell me, who are the kind of people who would go somewhere just for the sake of going to it? And there's a long, like, multi-dot pause, and 9 realizes, children.
There's no children in the future, only football. Yeah. So, this is sort of, one of the main themes is utility, and trying to exist without objectives, and goals, and, like, purpose. Obviously, people are immortal. That means that they no longer have to worry about death, which means that they have infinite amount of time to do whatever. This is a, like, serious question many characters ask. Like, what am I doing with my life? That's why people are willing to be in the middle of this valley forever, because it's something to do.
Yeah.
They even call it, like, objective syndrome. Like,
they
need to have something to work towards, which is, like, same.
Yeah, mood.
Mm-hmm.
I do like, to reel back to the podcast for a hot minute, I do like, effectively, like, the hosts take the two sides, where, like, one of them is like, I hate this game, because, like, even if I had 100 trillion years, why would I spend it watching this boring-ass game? And the other one was like, I don't know, though, like, it's an experience that you will never, like, get to see again. Right. And it's like... It's a really fun, like, sort of immediate introduction to the dichotomy of, like, utilizing your time as best you can versus you have infinite time. Why not just bullshit around for a bit? Right.
They even talk about how, like 9 asks, like, wait, why aren't there, like, flying cars and faster than light travel? And kind of bleakly, 10 is like, well, they found that there is no life anywhere in the universe, and if there is, it's farther than humans will ever be able to get to in their lifetime. But also, like, people started to care more about the world they were in. They started to actually stop and smell the roses because they had time to do so. And, like, people didn't want flying cars or teleportation because that was too easy.
This is the Plymouth Voyager intermission.
Yes!
Right?
I love the fucking Plymouth Voyager!
My God. So, like, interspersed during this explanation of 10 basically being, like, they liked the world that they lived in. This was the generation that became immortal, so this was the, what they wanted. They intersperse from the year 1975 to, like, the year 2000 various, like, newspaper ads of the Plymouth Voyager of the year. Mm-hmm. And, like, it's so... it is... it's one of those, it might be my favorite intermission. It's one of those things where it's like, it feels so poignant, and I know what it's saying, but I can't express it into words. Because it's like, all these pictures of this Plymouth Voyager, this shit-ass looking brick of a car that doesn't change significantly in 25 fucking years.
And people wanted it.
Yeah, it stood around for 25 years, but then at the very, very end, it has the clipping of, like, you know, the Plymouth Voyager saw a drop in 17% in its last year of manufacturing, and it's like, they took away my boy?
Yeah. You get really attached to the Plymouth Voyager.
Oh, man.
Also, fun play off the Voyager being another space probe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, so I think the thing with the sidewalks is that, like, even though people have an infinite time, all of them want to use it for a purpose, and stepping in places nobody has ever been, especially because they can't really verify it themselves, isn't for most people valuable. But that's the reason why football is so popular, is that people want games. Games are an objective with a set of rules. And even if they last a million years without a touchdown, that's still something to do.
Yeah. I don't want to give away sort of like my conclusion too early, but like, it is so important to me that, like, this series, a lot of utopian sort of like far off in the future series kind of end up in this thing where it's like, yes, things are bad, but things will get better in time. And that's not a bad message. Like, I am not putting anyone on blast. I think what makes 17776 a little different is that it does have that message to an extent, but, like, it also very heavily focuses on, like, sometimes there are things that just don't exactly get better. And, like, the sidewalk is really important to that, I feel, because, like, it's the children realization, you know? It's like, you know, it is awesome and wonderful that no one dies. No one has to deal with loss right now. No one has to deal with loss that we know, anyway, specifically.
Yeah, Tim Buckley is gone.
But, like... but, you know, nobody has to deal with the grief of death. Nobody has to deal with, you know, things like that. That is awesome. But, like, there are still a lot of things we have lost. You know, there are no more children running around. There is no more, like, even the best people, like, even the greatest people who do the weirdest play, no one is ever going to step on that lawn.
Mm-hmm. So, I believe it's around this point where we revisit Nancy. So, for one thing, 9 actually gets to talk to Nancy. They don't really explain how or why, but we learn that the satellites and the probes can talk to people, and 9 has a conversation with Nancy. Also, though, so this is a really cool chapter because no football happens. Instead, they talk about the WPA from the Great Depression era.
Yeah.
They go to Nancy.
Oh wait, this isn't 9 talking. This is Nancy getting a ball.
Right. Let's talk about the Nancy stuff still, because I want to bring this up. They talk about this weird ass like ballroom building that was built because somebody wanted their like workers during the Great Depression to still have work, and they had leftover sidewalk material, so they built a building out of sidewalk.
It's a little bit of wood and a lot of sidewalk, and it's a weird like octagon building.
Well, that's fantastic. I'll show you. So, I love this because this is just straight up a history story of a weird building that assumedly Jon Bois just found. And I think, so this is a big part of Jon Bois' style, is not only does he use the multimedia of like newspaper clippings and stuff like that and like old advertisements, but he brings in history to tell the current day story in a lot of times. This is, I think, more apparent in 20,020 at times, but like for example, like the Plymouth Voyager wasn't just using advertisements to make a point, it was using real things that happened, a real product to make a point.
Yeah.
Or in this case, it's the history of a public work in the Great Depression era to talk about, like, just having stuff to do, I guess. I love those little bits. Again, I don't want to spoil too much of 20,020, but it has a lot more of that where, like, history kind of repeats itself. But in a way, that's because Jon Bois is interested in telling history as much as he is telling the future.
Yeah. I'm looking at the time, and, like, there are literally, like, 2 other really big things that happen, I would say, like, big events. But I don't know that we can really talk about them and keep this at a reasonable level. We probably should talk about the ending, though.
Well, okay, we need to talk about 500.
Yes,
which
500.
is the last... there's 2 unique games. I want to go through them really quickly.
Yeah.
So, 500 is a game where somebody yells out a number of points, they throw the ball, whoever gets the ball gets the points. If you get 500 points, you become the person who throws the ball. The ball is a giant football shot out of a cannon in Alaska. Okay, so they talk about this. They learn about a player who is super unlucky because she has never caught a football from 500.
Yeah.
And she's actively tried.
Yeah, like across the United States famous for, like, statistically speaking, she should have gotten at least 1. But she just hasn't.
There's a great joke where it shows, like, an almanac of, like, the previous year's 500 stats, and it didn't hit Missouri. And they were like, look, if you're, a good place to look for a ball is in Missouri. Say it with us. Random operators like to distribute evenly.
Yeah.
If nobody's hit Missouri, it'll have to be there somewhere. I like to think of that as a jab at Jon Bois himself for not being able to make a convincingly random spread of footballs. He was like, well, if I can't actually make it look random, I'll just lampshade it.
Yeah.
Say that somebody else shot it, so of course it won't be random.
Also, hey, shoutouts to Missouri.
Yeah, shoutouts to Missouri. It's better than Illinois, which you'll learn because of a chapter in 20,020. So they follow where the ball's going. They learn that it is going to land right next to where this lady is, right as she's getting her Burger King order. Then they learn that there's going to be a big problem because it's going to hit the bulb, which is the longest running light bulb in the world.
Yeah.
It's a historic monument. It's, like, culturally significant.
And, like, it's a real thing as well. It obviously hasn't been running for, like, 15,000 years.
Yes. Again, this is another example of real history bleeding into the story beats.
Yeah.
To tell a story of
but,
history.
Like, and I love this, too, because, like, the robot, Juice and 10 are, like, freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's gonna hit the bulb. And, like, 10 has a literal eulogy for the bulb. And, like, it is so sad. Because, like, it's brought up later, like, this is probably the closest thing to, like, genuine loss these robots have felt in a very long time, at least.
Yeah. I feel really bad for
For the lady.
For the lady, yeah, Lucretia, that's her name. Who's been playing and finally gets her big break, and it turns out to be, like, the devastation of a millennia.
Yeah.
Okay, the last other unique game is Eddie Krieger, who has been hiding in a cave for hundreds of years in Kentucky because he has the ball, and if they can't find the person with the ball, then his team becomes the winner. He gets visited by, like, a Mormon or something.
Yeah.
Who's
It's actually... I kind of love this, like, mission idea.
Yeah.
'Cause it's, like... The idea is that, like, they literally pick a degree of longitude and they try to make friends with everyone who's on that degree, quote-unquote, which is sort of the intro to then talk about Jesus for them.
Yeah, they have a spiritual discussion on, like, is this the afterlife? Is this heaven? Is this hell? Do you believe in God? Really hard-hitting, poignant questions that make sense to ask within the universe. And both characters have kind of different, but kind of the same perspective.
Also, The cave that he is hiding in is extremely dangerous in real life, and, like, it is direct, like, the fourth wall is directly shattered, and lampshaded that it is being shattered in a very inelegant way, but the guy's like, listen, I know how people are. People, you read something in an internet story, you're gonna want to go there. This cave kills people. Do not enter this cave.
Yes. Because it's filled with carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
And he also only has for entertainment Konami LCD games,
Yeah.
which also aren't backlit, so I don't know how he's playing them.
And he plays each one for 300 years. He like milks them for 300 years.
Yeah, he speed ran it. He set records. Get fucking summoning salt on this asshole. Very very good. Oh yeah, and then they talk to Nancy.
Yeah.
With Nine, and they just talk about stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of vibing.
And then we get back to the Koy Detmer game, and we learn about New York. This is essentially like, they say, like, Nine, you have to power down, you're going to run out of power for a bit, that's okay, you'll recharge. What do you want to see before you shut down? Nine says, let me see New York, and they're like, you don't want to. And they're like, yes, please, let me see New York. And they're like, okay. Cue Jacob Geller video.
Yeah.
So
if I believe the exact quote is, the first time they talk about a city without people, it's about abandoned sidewalks. The second time, it's New York.
Yeah. And they also bring up Florida, too, and most of Texas.
Yeah.
So you can explain why.
Yeah. So New York is underwater, and it's so what is like happening in the story is that Koy Detmer man.
Jason is the guy who's looking for the ball.
Yeah. He, like, the lead that he has is in New York. And so he travels to New York and, like, brings scuba gear and stuff. And I think that's even mentioned earlier. But he goes to New York and he gets there, he calls his wife. Turns out it isn't actually a Koy Detmer ball.
It's Koy Detmer's brother.
Which is really unfortunate. And, like... It's sort of like, you know, it's a little defeating, but then like it turns into a fun conversation where they're like, you know, I was you know, doing a lot of diving. I saw this beautiful Merle. I wonder if you could play underwater football, which I also love that like the like what is the worst possible scenario in like earlier is suddenly like these two random people are like, hey, what if we made like an underwater football league?
Their football game actually sounds genius.
Yeah.
Like using speedboats, and then you can also use the partially sunken buildings as like terrain.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that sounds great. And then they would also make like a heavy football that sinks instead of floats, which completely changes up the fundamentals that were discussed on the podcast.
Oh, it's so good.
But yeah, so New York is underwater because of climate change. The ice caps melted.
Yeah, the introduction to this is a video, which, and now we're in talking about the actual medium of this. This is, I hate to say that this is like Homestuck. I hate to bring up a comparison to Homestuck. It's like Homestuck. It is a lot of images with text.
Text distinguished by color and typing technique.
Yep. Interspersed with GIFs sometimes, and occasionally videos, usually like at the end. And they're usually like intermission videos.
You can actually watch the first video on Jon Bois' YouTube channel, but everything else is unlisted. You'll have to go through the series yourself.
And Juice effectively brings up when it pans to New York and it shows that like completely underwater shot. Juice effectively is like, you know, back before they were like, you know, oh, well, it'll be fine. You know, we can, you know, it won't be a big problem. They tried to deny it. Then when it became a problem, they're like, oh, well, you know, we'll just science a solution to it. You know, someone will find something. Nah, man. And what's the exact quote? I have it here. Nah, man, all of it. Like, all of it. And then all this was gone. I miss it dearly.
Who's gonna buy your houses? Fucking Aquaman! Yeah.
Yeah, it's the last bit before the very ending, and it is...
Yeah. So, obviously, this is, you know, a commentary on current day. The greater theme told between this and the bulb is that humans are immortal, but what they do, including Earth, is not immortal.
Yeah.
Humans are still the rare example. Like, the bulb dies, essentially. It's the only loss they've faced. New York was sunk, most of Florida was sunk, most of Texas was sunk. These were things that were lost, and they cannot be fixed. Human beings are immortal in this universe, but they still have to treat the world as mortal.
Yeah. I love ending on this, because to harken back, a lot of future fiction likes to be like, you know, things are bad now, things will get better. But, like, I feel like a missing component sometimes is, like, things will get better, but you have to try and make it better now.
Yeah.
And, like, New York is so good because it effectively shows, like, if we aren't actively trying right now, this is what we face. And, like, things are still fine. Things are still great, even. You know, we still have immortal people. We still have a lot of football to play. But, like, no one will ever go to New York again. And, like, the very ending, which I love, is, like, 9 is about to lose battery, and so has to go to sleep. And, Juice is like, hey, how long's they got? And 10's like, probably about a minute. And then Juice, like, There's an earlier, like, literal list of questions that 9 has, and then Juice just, like, literally goes through 1 to, like, almost 15. He stops, he can't get past 15, and, like, just rambles out, this is the answer to everything you've just asked.
Yeah.
And, like, it's so good. It's especially so good as, like, a character moment, too, because, like, he's a Davelike who shitposts, and he shits on his own people. Like, he likens 9 to, like, a fucking beer keg.
Jokes about 10 having a picture of a dick on her.
Yeah. But, like, at the very end, it's like, okay, but, like, he does care. Mm-hmm. Like, he is a good person. And there is aspects of that, because he kind of mentions, like, you know, cultures haven't been lost or anything. Like, the moment that all this started getting really bad, you know, we don't have the Caribbean anymore, but, like, you know, the moment that it got really bad and shit hit the fan, we airlifted people out of there.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, they're now dispersed across the rest of, you know, the world. And, like, that is good. Like, it is good that we have not lost the literal, like, what culture is ultimately about, the people. That is good. But there's still, like, you can only say, but at least we got this for so many things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's weird because, like, it's a utopian story that's half, like, misanthropic almost, in that it views humans as, like, kind of lazy at times, people hesitant to change, and so if they weren't forced to change, they won't. But that also means that since they weren't forced to change until shit got really bad, you know, some of the US is flooded, some of the world is flooded that wasn't before. And, like, people love having goals, but they also got to that point too late. It's really interesting in how it views people.
Yeah, I think it sort of views I'm gonna say, like, a very general leftist lens. I'm not going to ascribe any... This is talking about the story, not about the man.
Yeah.
But, like, it's this general leftist lens of, like, humankind can be petty, can be destructive, but, like, if you really pressed them, if there was really a crisis going on, we like to think that at the end of the day, humanity would all band together for the greater good. And, like, I like to believe that's true as well. Like, I like to believe that if the world of 17776 was actually about to happen, that, yes, we would airlift people out of, coastal areas. I'd like to believe even that, like, you know, we would stop climate change if that were true. We would realize, oh shit, we're gonna have to deal with this forever. Let's make sure it's good as possible.
I mean, we already know that's going to happen, so...
I mean, yeah.
You know.
Maybe we did convince the boomers. The people who are like, well, I'm going to die anyway.
That's the thing, though, is that a big part of the premise of the story is the lack of new generations.
Yeah.
The reason why no tech has caught on is because of it's the existing generation. There's no kids to grow up. Like, fashion apparently goes through cycles still, which is really funny.
Yeah,
people talk about being like, oh, that's so 17,000, or I looked like a 15,000s era person.
Yeah, oh god, the pantsuit trends of the 12,000s.
Yeah, it's great. But, like, yeah, like, people don't need new tech. They don't need to move out. They can live in the same building all the time. Like, the new generations previously were a force of change, but they also were that force of like apathy of like, I'm gonna die soon. But because people stopped dying, they started to care more because they realized they have to actually inherit the earth they make for themselves.
Yeah. I think that the general philosophy is existentialism. Like, it is, humanity creates its own purpose.
Yeah.
Which is, the counter to nihilism. But, like, I do not think this is a nihilistic piece.
Yeah.
At all.
It's basically like people find purpose in any situation. People will find purpose. And it views games as a bonding an important cultural aspect because it's a form of purpose. It's a thing to do when you're bored, and it's a thing to want to do because you like it.
Yeah. I think 9 early, when he's they're kind of having their breakdown, I apologize, mentions like, so what, humanity just sort of hangs out now. Like, that's what we're doing. We're just hanging out and watching football. And like 9 or 10 and Juice are both like, yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, so I started this by saying that Jon Bois is the sports writer for people who don't like sports. 1776 is a thesis project about making a case for sports.
Yeah. It's non-sports people tend towards like sports ball, but like,
again, the reason why we didn't do the Calvin Ball opening is because of a chapter in 2020 that kind of really harshly paints those as like being really annoying. Yeah, it's pretty great. It makes me care about football. It makes me cry a bit.
Yeah, I cried no shorter than like 4 times during this entire thing. Once for a fucking light bulb.
Yep. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, the bulb. The 17776 is great. Even if you've listened to all of this, you should still read it.
It's an experience you can only have on the internet.
Yeah, very genuinely. This, much like a Homestuck, this is like a internet piece of media that cannot be anything else.
Yeah, it's wild. I want to mention, so again, I don't want to spoil 2020 because Galen has not read it as far as I know.
Yes, I have not.
But I want to make a distinction that while it's still existential, it feels like 17776 was the like thought piece, and 2020 is more of a straightforward story that still incorporates Jon Bois' style of using history and Google Earth and stuff like that, but is more about the plot than 17776. Whereas this is like vignettes in sort of a collection of short stories almost. 2020 has a narrative going on. And I think it's great. It's a lot like some of the favorite media I keep talking about, Kaiji and Liar Game and all those other gaming series. But I really do recommend it. It's great. It's a Gambit series, a Gambit story, a story about gambits, like Death Note.
Oh yeah,
it's like the football Death Note.
I really love
it's
the
a
part.
Footnote.
I really love the part in Squid Game where Ji-hoon is like, "I'm gonna go to the football door."
Yeah.
And then he opens his tin and it's a football. It's not even a football cracker. It's just a football.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Do something with this."
And then he just eats the football.
Yeah, he licks the football a lot, and for some reason he passes.
It's even official size.
Yeah.
But not official weight. Poor Luigi.
This has been NetSurfer Pro. Thank you very much for listening.
You can follow us on any podcasting platform you like, NetSurfer Pro. Get updates on when we go live. You can also follow our Twitter at NetSurfer Pro, where we tweet out little teasers on what's coming up next. The emoji teaser for this episode was a football and 3 satellites, which should be very obvious if you've read the story. Can you figure out our next 2? Maybe.
Try it.
Yeah, try it. Why not? Just try it out. You can also send us recommendations for anything you think we might like or check out. Maybe we'll cover it on an episode. You never know. And you can follow me on Twitter at MattCraigGaming, where I tweet about what I'm working on, what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm playing, and when I go live on my stream on twitch.tv/twack, twitch.tv/twak. I stream on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday from about 1 p.m. Central Time to 3 or 4 p.m. Central Time, though I'm messing around with the schedule a bit, maybe going a little earlier. I stream a lot of roguelites, competitive games. The new Teamfight Tactics set just dropped, so I'm playing that a lot. So check that out. I'm always very analytical, do a lot of discussions on stuff and themes. Every first stream of the week, I do the weekly Shonen Jump, where I talk about this week's weekly Shonen Jump manga. So if you want to discuss manga, check that out. I have a lot to say about PPPPPP.
I have no idea what you just said for the past 20 seconds, and that's why you're my co-host.
Oh, also, check out my second channel, Twack Playthroughs, which is where I upload the VODs of my stream that I edit sometimes. Also, though, that's where we do our Net Surfer plays, where it's us doing like little Let's Plays.
Yeah. Speaking of me, you can find me on Twitter and on TikTok at Galen Wilson. That's at GalenWils0N. I very recently posted a cool selfie because I was in the wind all day, and I looked like fucking Leshy from Inscription.
Nice.
You can also go ahead and find me on YouTube at The Only Galen on YouTube, where I'll make a video one of these days. And if you feel like following my Twitch, I don't stream a whole lot, but you can find me at Machine Gun Vampire on Twitch. So go ahead and give me a follow anywhere you would like.
And with that, we have another game for history for the record books, folks.
Oh my god, I really hope nobody was caught up in an hour plus long ad, because some of the greatest plays just happened. Running back Jeremy Plimbins just scored like 14 points.
And that halftime show, Daft Punk came out of retirement for that, and Oasis. They got both of them together.
Yeah, and they immediately went back into retirement after, and there's, we have a non-disclosure agreement, so, it can never be replayed again. So if you weren't there live, tough luck.
And, if you were there live, then God help us.